So for this week's How to Topple Tyrants, which I've published on my Substack, please go and check it out and let me know what you think. I've been reading about the French resistance during World War II and everything that they estimate between 1% and 3% of the French population were actively engaged in resistance against the Germans. And they did all sorts of shit. Some of it blowing things up, some of it just simple sabotage. But I've also in particular been reading about women in the resistance, and they had a huge role to play, in part because they were so underestimated by the Germans. So women would be whizzing about on bikes with little grocery baskets, smuggling shit, or they'd put things in a baby pram and push it past the Germans. They were an incredibly powerful force in the resistance, but there was one lady in particular, and her story has really touched me. So her name was Simone Michel Levy, and she used her job in the postal service to obtain intelligence about the Germans, which she then sent to London under the codename of Emma. She took a huge risk, and she was eventually captured and deported to Ravensbrück, where she continued to sabotage the Germans by organising the work stoppages of her inmates. Sadly, the Germans sentenced her to death, and she was hanged in April of 1945. But I just think that's just such an incredible example of somebody who was not willing to take what was happening lying down, and even in prison she was causing trouble. So anyway, please go read my latest Substack and let me know what you think. And I'm really enjoying this series just because it's making me research periods of history that I know very little about, and I realise I just don't know anything about the French resistance. So I'm actually going to buy a couple of books and read up a bit more, because it's there's some really powerful lessons in there around how populations will become complicit because they're just desperate for stability, how some parts of a population will use authoritarianism as an opportunity to further their own ends, and how there will always be 3% of the population who are just not willing to take that shit lying down.